The young and the restless suggest that Claire Newman is no longer operating from curiosity alone but from something far more dangerous and consuming: conviction. What began as suspicion about Audra Charles' time in Los Angeles has now hardened into an obsession that is quietly reshaping Claire's judgment, her relationships, and perhaps even her moral compass. Claire is not chasing gossip, nor is she motivated by jealousy or rivalry. She believes, with a certainty that unsettles even her, that something fatal happened in Los Angeles involving a missing art dealer and that Audra is connected to it. The difficulty lies not in her instinct, but in the absence of proof. Instinct without evidence is just noise in Genoa City, and Claire knows that if she intends to challenge someone as controlled and calculating as Audra, she will need more than suspicion. She will need something undeniable. Her path toward the truth has led her repeatedly to Holden Novak, the one man who hovers at the edge of the story like a shadow that refuses to detach from the wall. Holden knows more than he admits, and Claire senses it every time he hesitates half a second too long before answering a question about Los Angeles. Their meetings began under the guise of casual conversation, strategic curiosity masked as polite engagement, but the tension beneath their exchanges has grown steadily thicker. Claire has watched his eyes carefully, searching for the flicker of guilt, the involuntary tightening of his jaw when she mentions the missing art dealer. She has tested him with subtle references, with statements designed to provoke correction. Holden never corrects her. He deflects, he redirects, he minimizes. And for Claire, that is enough to confirm that he is not being honest. Eventually, she makes a decision that feels like both strength and defeat. She tells Holden they should not see each other anymore. She frames it not as accusation but as clarity. She cannot continue interacting with someone who withholds the truth, yet beneath that composure lies something more complex. Claire is not walking away because she no longer needs him. She is walking away because she realizes she may never break him. Holden's restraint is not the nervous silence of an innocent man. It is the deliberate silence of someone protecting a secret. Claire understands that pressing him further could push him deeper into defensive territory, making the truth even harder to extract. By cutting ties, she hopes to rattle him, to destabilize the controlled dynamic he has been maintaining. If he fears losing her access, perhaps he will finally talk. But Holden does not crumble immediately, and that unsettles her more than she wants to admit. There is always the possibility that he will eventually yield, that guilt will erode his discipline. Yet Claire begins to accept that waiting for his confession may be futile. If he does speak, it will be on his terms, not hers. And Claire refuses to let the truth be dictated by someone else's comfort. That is when her determination hardens into something colder. If Holden will not provide the answers, she will find another path. She will reconstruct the timeline herself. She will revisit Los Angeles connections, financial trails, gallery records, any whisper of documentation tied to the art dealer who vanished without resolution. The missing man has become more than a case file in her mind. He has become a symbol of something rotten hidden beneath Audra's carefully constructed image. Claire is not naive about the world she lives in. Genoa City thrives on reinvention, on reputations polished until they reflect only light. Audra has mastered that craft. She is poised, ambitious, strategic, but Claire senses fracture lines beneath the surface. She believes something irreversible happened in Los Angeles, something that was never meant to follow Audra back to Wisconsin. And now that it has begun to resurface in whispers, Claire feels responsible for bringing it fully into the light. What she does not yet possess are the details that transform suspicion into accusation. The art dealer's disappearance is clouded in ambiguity. There was no public scandal, no dramatic investigation splashed across headlines, just silence, just absence, and in that silence lies the possibility of violence. Claire is convinced the incident at a bar in Los Angeles is the key. She has pieced together fragments, an argument, escalating tension, Holden stepping in to defend Audra, a physical altercation that ended with the art dealer being shoved into a bar counter. At first glance, it could be dismissed as a drunken scuffle, but Claire does not believe in coincidences, not when the man later disappeared. Not when Holden refuses to confirm the extent of what happened. The truth, buried beneath layers of avoidance, is more devastating than Claire realizes. Holden did not intend to kill anyone. In the heat of the moment, when he saw the art dealer cornering Audra with a mixture of aggression and leverage, he reacted instinctively. He shoved the man hard, harder than he calculated. The art dealer's head struck the bar counter at an unforgiving angle. The impact was sickening in its suddenness. There was no dramatic pause, no time for reflection. Just a body collapsing in a way that felt wrong, catastrophically wrong. Holden understood in that instant that something irreversible had occurred. Whether the death was immediate or delayed by minutes remains a detail Holden refuses to revisit even in his own mind. What matters is that panic replaced reason. Audra, pragmatic even in shock, recognized the magnitude of the situation. A scandal in Los Angeles could have destroyed her trajectory before it fully formed. The art dealer was not an innocent stranger. He had his own complications, his own questionable dealings, but none of that would matter in the public eye. An altercation ending in death would follow Audra forever. And so, in a moment of shared fear, decisions were made. Decisions that prioritized survival over confession. Holden has been living with the weight of that shove ever since. It was an accident, he tells himself. He was protecting Audra. He did not mean to cause fatal harm, yet intent does not erase outcome. And now Claire's relentless pursuit threatens to reopen something he has tried desperately to compartmentalize. Every time she mentions Los Angeles, he feels the past tightening around his throat. He cannot confirm what she suspects, but neither can he convincingly deny it. That tension is what ultimately convinces Claire he is hiding something substantial. Claire's obsession is not fueled by cruelty but by justice. She believes that if something lethal occurred, it cannot remain buried simply because those involved moved cities and rebuilt their narratives. She does not yet know the exact sequence of events, but she senses blood in the margins of the story. The challenge is extracting proof without alerting Audra too soon. If Audra realizes the depth of Claire's investigation, she will close ranks, reinforce her defenses, perhaps even preemptively discredit Claire. Claire must move carefully, strategically, assembling evidence quietly before making any confrontation public. As she distances herself from Holden, she begins exploring alternative channels. She revisits timelines, examines inconsistencies in travel records, traces connections between gallery events and sudden financial withdrawals. She reconstructs the night at the bar in her mind, imagining angles, proximity, force. She studies human behavior, trying to determine whether Audra's composure is genuine or rehearsed. The more she analyzes, the more convinced she becomes that the missing art dealer did not simply vanish. Something happened, something final. And yet, beneath her determination, a shadow of doubt occasionally flickers. What if she is wrong? What if obsession is distorting her perception? Claire wrestles with that possibility, but it never holds for long. The fragments align too cleanly. The silence is too coordinated. Holden's avoidance is too calculated. No one reacts that way to a harmless misunderstanding. People do not guard trivial memories with that level of vigilance. Holden, meanwhile, begins to feel the consequences of Claire's withdrawal. Her decision to end their meetings unsettles him more than he expected. He had grown accustomed to managing the narrative through proximity. By keeping her close, he could monitor her suspicions, redirect her focus. Now she is operating independently, and that loss of control terrifies him. Guilt and fear begin eroding his confidence. There remains a possibility that he will eventually confess, not out of moral awakening but out of exhaustion. Yet confession would not simply implicate him. It would pull Audra into legal and reputational peril. And despite everything, he still feels protective of her. Claire stands at the edge of a revelation she cannot yet see in full. She senses the gravity of what she is approaching, but she does not yet comprehend how deeply it will fracture relationships once exposed. If she uncovers proof that Holden's shove resulted in the art dealer's death, the fallout will not remain confined to Los Angeles. It will explode into Genoa City, destabilizing alliances, reshaping perceptions, forcing Audra to confront a past she believed safely contained. For now, the truth remains suspended between silence and discovery. Claire is relentless. Holden is cornered. Audra is unaware of how close the storm is drawing. And somewhere within the unresolved memory of a bar counter stained by panic, the fatal second that changed everything waits to be dragged into the light. The only question left is not whether Claire will uncover what happened, but whether the truth, once revealed, will destroy more than just reputations. The very thought of approaching Kyle with such a proposal carries irony sharp enough to wound. The last time Kyle entangled himself in a calculated flirtation with Audra, it nearly destroyed what he was building with Claire. What began as a strategic performance in Nice had escalated beyond its intended boundaries. Kyle had assured Claire that he was merely playing a role, pretending to be susceptible to Audra's advances in order to expose her maneuvering. But in the execution of that strategy, he crossed a line that no explanation could fully erase. He kissed Audra. He let the performance feel authentic. For Claire, watching that unfold was not merely strategic discomfort. It was betrayal disguised as intelligence work. She had believed she could separate mission from emotion. Instead, she discovered how fragile that separation truly was. Now, for Claire to suggest repeating such a maneuver would require swallowing pride and reopening wounds that never fully healed. Yet her determination to uncover what happened in Los Angeles outweighs personal discomfort. She understands that Audra does not respond to confrontation. Audra responds to intimacy, to perceived trust, to the illusion that she has secured someone's loyalty. Claire believes that if anyone could position himself close enough to penetrate Audra's carefully guarded narrative, it is Kyle. The irony is cruel. The very chemistry that once destabilized Claire's trust may now be the tool she must exploit. Kyle's reaction, she anticipates, will be immediate resistance. He remembers the consequences of the Nice incident vividly. He remembers the argument, the fracture in Claire's eyes when she realized that his performance had not felt entirely fabricated. He knows that even if his original intent was strategic, there was a moment when the lines blurred. Audra is magnetic, ambitious, and perceptive. When she sensed Kyle recognizing her attempt to seduce him on behalf of Victor Newman, she did not retreat. Instead, she escalated. She leaned into the game. Kyle responded in kind, reversing the dynamic and seducing her right back. What followed was not a simple manipulation from one side but a layered psychological duel in which both believed they were in control. Kyle's strategy at the time had been clear in his mind: expose Audra's true allegiance to Victor and demonstrate how far she was willing to go to serve his interests. He wanted evidence. He wanted clarity. He wanted to prove that he was not the naive everyone assumed him to be. But in executing that plan, he underestimated the emotional volatility of proximity. Audra did not merely play along. She challenged him intellectually, matched him move for move, and revealed flashes of vulnerability that complicated his perception of her. Somewhere in that exchange, sparks ignited that neither fully anticipated. Attraction does not obey strategic boundaries. That lingering attraction has never fully dissipated. Recently, in a conversation with Noah Newman, both Kyle and Audra discovered common ground that felt less manufactured and more organic. They share a complicated history with Victor. They both believe, perhaps quietly but sincerely, that Victor's current misfortunes are not entirely undeserved. Victor's manipulations have rippled through countless lives, including theirs. That shared resentment creates a subtle alliance, one built not on romance but on perspective. It is within that space of shared ideology that something authentic has begun to grow. Claire recognizes this development with a mixture of strategic calculation and suppressed unease. On one hand, the natural evolution of Kyle and Audra's dynamic provides the perfect cover. If Kyle gradually deepens his connection with Audra, it will not appear orchestrated. It will seem like the natural continuation of an attraction that was already present. On the other hand, Claire cannot ignore the emotional risk. Encouraging Kyle to grow closer to Audra means inviting the possibility that what begins as strategy may end as genuine attachment. Claire must confront an uncomfortable truth. To achieve her objective, she may have to sacrifice certainty in her own relationship. When Claire finally approaches Kyle with the idea, the atmosphere between them is charged not only with urgency but with history. She does not frame it as manipulation, she frames it as necessity. She explains that Audra is unlikely to reveal anything under pressure. She emphasizes that intimacy breeds confession. Kyle listens, his expression tightening as the implications settle. He knows exactly what she is asking. He also knows the cost. The memory of the kiss in Nice still lingers between them like unfinished business. To step back into that territory would mean reopening that fracture, trusting that this time the line between performance and reality will remain intact. Kyle's internal conflict mirrors Claire's, though his is colored by pride. He does not want to be used as bait, yet he cannot deny that he is uniquely positioned for this role. Audra responds to him. She challenges him. She confides in him in ways she does not with others. If there are cracks in her story about Los Angeles, he may be the only one who can see them from close range. The strategy makes sense. The risk is emotional, not tactical. As Kyle contemplates the proposal, he also considers his evolving perspective on Audra. Their recent conversations have not felt entirely transactional. There were moments of candid laughter, moments where both acknowledged Victor's heavy hand in shaping their paths. That shared understanding felt genuine. It was not flirtation crafted for leverage, it was alignment born of experience. For Kyle, that makes the situation more complicated. To deliberately exploit that growing trust feels ethically murky. Yet he also knows that if Audra is concealing involvement in something lethal, transparency matters more than comfort. Claire's obsession with the missing art dealer has intensified her willingness to blur moral lines. She believes that if Holden's shove resulted in a fatal outcome, and if Audra participated in covering it up, then conventional restraint is a luxury she cannot afford. The truth demands boldness. She sees Kyle not as a pawn but as a partner in justice. She trusts that he can manage the emotional terrain without losing himself. Whether that trust is rooted in confidence or desperation remains unclear even to her. If Kyle agrees, the approach must be subtle. There can be no sudden escalation, no overt attempt to pry. The relationship between him and Audra must continue developing organically. Late conversations, shared grievances about Victor, strategic vulnerabilities offered in increments. Kyle would need to position himself as someone Audra can rely on, someone who understands the pressure of navigating Victor's orbit. As closeness grows, so might confession. People reveal secrets not when interrogated but when they believe they are safe. Audra, perceptive as ever, may sense the shift. She is not naive. She understands that Kyle is capable of layered motives, yet she also carries her own burdens. The night in Los Angeles is a fracture in her past she has sealed tightly. If she begins to trust Kyle genuinely, the pressure of that sealed memory may intensify. Secrets demand energy to maintain. Proximity erodes discipline. If Kyle creates an environment where vulnerability feels natural, Audra may inadvertently disclose more than she intends. The danger lies not only in exposure but in transformation. What if Kyle, in the process of drawing closer, rediscovers the spark that once complicated everything? What if Audra, sensing sincerity, lowers her defenses for reasons unrelated to strategy? Emotional entanglement has a way of rewriting objectives. Claire is gambling not only with Audra's secrets but with Kyle's loyalty. Yet from Claire's perspective, time is narrowing. Holden's silence grows more suffocating. Evidence remains elusive. The most direct path to the truth may indeed be through Audra's heart, not her defenses. Claire stands at a moral crossroads, prepared to offer as a maneuver that could either expose a lethal secret or fracture her own stability.